They're 36-40.
Yeah.
And they've been the equivalent of 36-40 since Lonzo got hurt 2.5 years ago.
That is so factual.
I feel like I am stuck.
Yeah.
I feel like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day.
Is that a worse feeling than being the clear worst team? Than feeling like you're stuck in the middle?
It's just like a different flavor of bad.
Okay.
It's worse.
Explain.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
It's worse. I mean, what would you... I mean, it's a year-to-year thing, but if you were the worst team last year and then you end the season and you're staring Victor Wembanyama, that number 1 pick in the face, or it's next year and you're staring Cooper, like, it's a direction. It's a direction. Look at some of the, or you got to be bad, I think, in a lot of cases. If you want to get that guy, there's no shortcuts.
So, I think I mostly agree with you. I think when they did the Jimmy trade, Bulls fans knew what we were up against.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're starting over.
And
it's probably going to be rocky.
Yeah.
And then it stayed rocky
Balboa.
a little longer than I think Bulls fans wanted to. Because Bulls fans are impatient, especially those of us who grew up just winning the championship every year.
That was me.
Which was lots of fun. But the thing that I think some of us can compartmentalize and make peace with when you go through a rebuild or when your team is young and is about development and stacking L's and stacking lottery ping pong balls for a season or two is that. I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of optimism for growth with this we're going to run it back a third time season of lots of the same pieces.
Yeah.
That's harder to psych yourself up for. It was demoralizing and not just demoralizing, but devastating when you tell yourself, all right, I know that we're going through a rebuild and it's about young talent and developing it and probably racking up a bunch of L's while also keeping an eye on that draft. And then when we did the draft lottery watch party between seasons 1 and 2 of Outsiders, and we watched that Bulls placard come up at the 7th pick. I mean,
again,
it was caught on camera. You, me, and Sabine were sitting there in that bar.
You spilled your beer on my shirt.
I spilled my beer on your shirt because I had a heart attack.
Yes, you did.
Of absolute crushing devastation. Yes. It was in that moment, I felt like the slow-mo rewind of Ralph Wiggum getting told by Lisa Simpson, I don't love you. You can see in that exact moment when his heart breaks into a million pieces. When you're hoping for that payoff moment and it doesn't come, that makes the rebuild seasons harder. But there is a purpose to it. I mean, perfect example, the jubilation we all got to watch our CHGO Blackhawks crew experience. When they got the number 1 pick and the right to draft Connor Bedard.
Sure.
That's the plan the Bulls tried for a couple years and they failed at it.
Very bad. They failed at it several times.
Sean Kill draft pick.
You know I hate losing. It's just not something I'm programmed to accept. And I understand it in certain cases. When you tell me your clear vision is we're going to rebuild, that's different. You're telling me you've chosen a path. Okay, there's your path. You're going to rebuild. We're going to start this over. We're going to do this right. But the difference with this one, Matt, is, and what I think is more frustrating, I don't think it's because they're in the middle. It's because they are wanting to stay there. And I think that's the difference. And because they've had opportunities to kind of do something to maybe lift them out of that. And they haven't taken those steps to get them out of that position. So that's why I don't mind the middle, because when you're there, you're supposed to be making the moves to help lift yourself out of that middle. And that's the frustrating part.
Right.
They have not done that part, is make the right moves and the competent moves and the moves that everybody can see that you need to make to get yourself out of that position and then elevate yourself and then move forward with that. That's what's the frustrating part of being in the middle, is they're comfortable with it. It's not being there. It's the fact they're cool with it.
Right.
That's the frustrating part, dude.
And I think it's because it's been now 3 consecutive years where you see where your team is 2/3 of the way through the season, a.k.a. the trade deadline, leading up to it. 2/3 of a season is plenty enough of a sample size to know what you have and what you might need or want to do in the final third of the season.
Right.
In season 1 of this experiment, of this roster that AK and Eversley constructed, I think Bulls fans were maybe frustrated knowing that Lonzo went down and didn't know if he was coming back, and that team looked like it was good, but not good enough.
We understood what
because they were high in the East standings, but they were mostly losing to the good teams and beating the bad teams,
destroying them.
And we're like, okay, this team might be a first-round playoff exit.
Right.
Maybe if they get the right matchup, they can get to the conference semis. That's their ceiling.
Right.
And they sat there and did nothing and said, we're good. Then they did it again last season when I think a lot of Bulls fans were saying, this ain't it. Maybe start selling off some of the pieces you can get value for and reorchestrate this roster this offseason, but start now when people are throwing you offers for things. And then it was absolute deja vu of the same thing happening this year.
Yeah.
With the exact same middling results,
Yeah.
just 1 year fast forwarded into the future.
Yeah.
And you're like, each time they decided to do nothing, it made less and less sense.
That part.
And it makes, and you're right, it makes it seem like they are okay with where they are.
Yeah.
Which is being just okay, barely okay.
Yeah.
That's the part that I think drives fans crazy.
Yeah, and Colin, I think that's the C word, is content. And just being okay with that. And that will always be the forever frustrating part. For me, it's not being that middle. I would rather do middle than lab because all I think of is teams like the Charlotte Hornets. That's who I think of all the time, who are always in the draft, who always got a high draft pick, who always got somebody everybody says, oh, they're going to be the one, and they can't put it together ever. Ever. They can't put it together. They'll go to the playoffs 1 year, and then that's it. You know what I mean? Then they're back to the bottom, then they're back in the draft. And then they're drafting that player, and then it still doesn't help. It's the same thing. It's the same vicious cycle because losing is a very hard stank to get off of you. You can change it with a generational player. But those are few and far between, which is why they're called generational players. You can change it with that. A good draft pick, you cannot do that. A good draft pick, you have to build more stuff around. Generational, you will change the mentality. Look at the Spurs. You know what I mean? Look at LeBron. Look at whoever you want to consider a generational talent, just look at what they've done.
I mean,
it starts mentally with that.
Look at what Minnesota has done, adding Anthony Edwards.
Again, mentality.
In
correct.
A few years.
The mentality.
We're just like a top seed in the West now.
Yes, and that's his mental. He's insane.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And he wants to win like that. It changes with that mentality. Not good, but a great mentality. So the Bulls were in a position to actually do stuff to move themselves out of it. That is, again, the frustrating part, ladies and gentlemen. We know what you needed, and they wouldn't get it. Or when they, instead of getting it, they got a generic-ass version of it and said, well, maybe this will tie you over. You know what I'm saying? So, and it didn't work. Okay, let's go get Dragic. You know what I mean? Like, wait, what? No, you don't need. You need some three-point shooting, dog. Okay, you know what? Let's try it with Javon Carter. Okay, I need an actual shooter. Like, can we get shooters out here? You know what? Do it at the trade deadline. Nah, we cool. We're standing pat. You know what I'm saying? We don't need that. Nah, we're cool. Let's go get Patrick Bev, and we'll move on. We'll be fine with that. Guys, it's that lack of recognition about what you have. You know what I mean? And just saying we're all right with what we got, because I think that we're better than that, even though everything continues to show you that you're not.
We all silly like the mayor.